All right. Hello, my name is John Lewis, and you are listening to the next episode of the Autism Athletics Podcast. I really appreciate y'all for tuning in. So please give it up for my next guest, Keyon Boyd, who is a high school basketball coach.
Hey, thank you, John, for having me, man. I know it's been a long time coming, man, and now we finally here, man, to get this done.
Yes, I've been wanting to do this. So, did you grow up liking sports and playing sports?
Yes, I have an older brother who, he's meant a lot to me, man, and he actually got me into sports because you want to do everything your big brother, or if you got a sister, you always want to do what they do, and you always want to do it better. So he would go outside, and I want to go and play with him, and play basketball, football, whatever it was. I just wanted to be around sports, and he kind of introduced me to sports.
So, what was your main sport? What would you say was your main sport?
Basketball. Basketball was my main sport. Truth be told, man, I was slightly a good athlete back in the day, man. I played some football, played a little baseball, but basketball was my primary sport.
What was the highest level you played at?
I played in college. I played at Tennessee Tech University in Cookeville, Tennessee. Shout out to Coach Payne, Coach Sutton, Gary Respris, Coach Respris, all the coaches I've come across, man. And at Tennessee Tech gave me opportunity to go and play on the next level. So
All right. Were you a good player?
I was solid, man. I was a solid player, man. I won't sit around here and say I was, but I had some good games, man. I remember playing against Kentucky. Had 18 against Kentucky one year. I've had some 20 points. I've had some 15-point games. I also had some, just like anybody else, you have some bad games, but I was definitely a solid basketball player. I averaged like 9 points throughout my career. And I did my job. I did my job. So, but I would call myself a great, solid college player.
All right. So now we're going to transition into you as a coach. So,
Yeah.
how did you get into coaching?
Actually, it was kind of like my senior year in college, and I had my son. Uh, Shout out to my son who, he played for me at Hiram High. He's going to play at Georgia College next year. But I had him while I was in college. And, during that time, I had to figure out what I wanted to do after I graduated. And one of my high school coaches, Coach Ed Riddle, rest his soul. He was actually transitioning to become the varsity head coach at Cass High School, and he needed a JV coach, and I was transitioning out of college, and he asked me if I wanted to coach the JV team. And at that point, I was like, why not? I still wanted to be around the game. Um, and I wanted to, kind of um, just still, indulge, or I would say, invest in and pour into young men as well, like somebody poured into me. And so I told him I would come do it. And he gave me a start as a JV head coach at Cass High School.
So, just tell people where all you've coached and why you chose to coach there.
Well, Cass High School was my first coaching job. That was in '06, and then I lived in Sandy Springs, so I was kind of driving back from Sandy Springs to Cass High School, which was far. So that following year, I started coaching, and I was a parapro at Roswell High School, which was 10 minutes up the street from where I lived in Sandy Springs. Shout out to Coach Ty Phillips, who's still at Roswell, who gave me another opportunity to, sit beside him on the varsity level. And then after that, I figured, if I'm gonna do it, I need to be, I really wanted to do it after that, and Gordon Pritz. He was my high school principal, and he was the assistant superintendent of Cobb at the time. And I told him, I wanted to coach and I wanted to, kind of get into the education world. And so I sent him my resume, and that's how I got to Hillgrove. He sent my resume out. Hillgrove called me maybe a couple days later, and I interviewed, and I spent 10 years there at Hillgrove. And I learned a lot from Ed Morris, who, shout out to Ed Morris, who, gave me another great opportunity to, be around young guys and pour into them and see what the varsity high school level was about. And then after those 10 years, big shout out to Darius Hodge, who was the head coach at Hiram, who was transitioning into administration. And he kind of, always used to, well, not kind of, but he used to always ask if I wanted to be a head coach. And I used to, I was like, yes. And so he was like, have your stuff ready. And finally he was transitioning to administration, and I was able to go interview, and I spent 8 years at Hiram, which was some great years, for a first time head coach. Shout out to Coach Magruder, who's there now, and I know he'll do great things with Hiram. But Coach Hodge was, he was great. He was just a somebody sent from God that just kind of helped and guided me throughout the whole process, and still to this day, has been a big part of my growth and development as a head coach. And now I am at Etowah High School, and another great opportunity for me to grow as a coach and pour into young men in that area, and continue the success that I've had over the last several years.
So, how do you think Etowah, where you're currently at, is going to help you grow as a coach?
It's a different opportunity, different challenge. We're going to be in one of the, if not the toughest regions in the state of Georgia. But also, it's an opportunity where I can showcase my coaching skills with a different group of young men, and give them, what I've been giving the young men at Hiram, and even before then, give them the tools that they need to go and be successful, not only on the basketball court, but in life. A lot of coaches look at things as wins and losses. I look at it as, these guys are going to be, these kids are going to be fathers, husbands, they're going to be CEOs, they're going to be, citizens. And for me, I have to make sure I can show them and guide them, in ways that not only will the stuff that we do in basketball can help them on the court, but off the court as young men, getting out into the world.
All right. So, how do you transition from like JV coach to varsity assistant to head coach? Like, how do you make that transition?
Um, it's John, it was something that happens. I ain't gonna say fast, but it was just kind of like a process. Um, and a lot of people think that, oh man, I can do it, I can do it. It's a different world, man. As a JV coach, you're trying to pour into kids, give kids the skills to get ready for the varsity level. And you got to make sure that they are doing what they need to, but also making sure once they get to the varsity level as a JV coach that they can keep up and they can do what they need to be a piece of the puzzle. And then going from a varsity assistant, you're right there, you're at the top of the totem pole with the guys, the best of the best that are in that school. And you're just trying to make sure that you can give them everything that they need to compete, at the highest level of high school basketball in the state of Georgia. And then as a head coach, it's a big umbrella. You're managing, not only kids, you gotta manage some adults. You gotta make sure you got relationships in the community. relationships with administration. Make sure your relationships are good with the parents, but also you have to make sure that you are preparing these kids to go out and play every day, night in and night out. Tuesday, Friday, Saturday. And make sure that they are well prepared. Um, as a head coach, but like I say, it goes beyond just the court. You got to make sure once they graduate, or you can help them get across that stage, but also once they graduate, get out here and be productive citizens as well. The one thing I always tell kids, that ball will stop bouncing. So what do you have? So you got to be ready and you got to be prepared for life. And while you're playing basketball, you can do that at the same time. And that's my job as a head coach.
That's awesome. So when you first took over as a head coach, um, were you nervous? Did you feel prepared? What?
You're always gonna feel nervous about a first time for anything, and I was nervous. John, I had an idea of what I needed to do, and shout out to Mike Artis, who came to Hiram with me when I got the job at Hiram, and man, he's unbelievable. He's doing great things at Chapel Hill right now as a head coach himself. But we came in and we did some great things, and I think having a great staff um, is beneficial. Because I tell people all the time, I can't have a successful season without a good staff and good people around to help me.
So I always like to ask this question for either football or basketball, but how does it, how do you get to choose your staff? Do you have any say in that?
Yeah, yeah, you have a lot to say. Sometimes it's guys or coaches that you already know or that's already coaching with you that you bring along with you, or it's people that that can come in and help you, um, in your program to get you over the hump and help build a good program. So sometimes it's about who you know, and it's also about who you already have, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was like an interviewing process or if you just bring in who you want or.
And sometimes when you go to places, there are already coaches that are there, assistant coaches that are there that you will you know have help you, and you guys grow together.
All right, so now let's go to you as a coach. Like
Mhm.
we're gonna walk through you as a coach. So what is a typical Coach Boyd practice like?
Uh, you know, it just depends on the day. So if we have a late practice, I usually try to get in the weight room before we have practice or watch film. You try to utilize all the time that you have, right? And then once we get into practice, man, I'm trying to get guys to compete, every minute, every second of practice. So it's kind of, let's go, no time wasted. You always try to tell young men, in life, the most valuable thing you have in life is time, right? So if you're here at practice, let's not waste my time. Let's not waste your time. So, but from start to finish is every drill is competitive, and you're just trying to get guys to compete, play hard, and then you're trying to prepare them for really game days and stuff. So and making sure that they know and have an idea of every aspect of what the game will be like before it happens during practice.
Are there specific things you like to emphasize? Because I know coaches have their things they like to emphasize.
I'm a defensive guy. Like I emphasize defense. Um, I feel like if you can play defense, offense will come. I feel like if you can guard somebody, man to man, whatever defense we're implementing, and if you can do that, man, a lot of things can happen, and sometimes some kids are not as skilled as others. So the only thing that they do have is to play defense, I mean, um, a lot of people have made a lot of money in the NBA and now in college just for playing defense. And for me, emphasizing defense is huge. And all those other little things too, free throws. We take time out in practice to shoot free throws. Because at the end of the day, you get to that line, the game's on the line and you got to hit a free throw. I want you to be prepared. I want you to have the mental capacity to make a free throw. So I try to emphasize a lot of the little things, rebounding, you got to rebound the ball, boxing out. A lot of kids, a lot of coaches don't, emphasize boxing out. It's a lost art. But if you can rebound the ball, you give your team plenty of chances, and opportunities to score the ball.
So I got a couple things. So you said you like to work on free throws. So how do you help somebody with free throws? Because I remember in the NBA Finals, Wemby missed a couple
Mhm.
crucial free throws.
Yeah. So in practice, you try to have situations where you shoot free throws under pressure, where you got to make one. If not, then the team runs. You know what I'm saying? Or
So
you're scrimmaging and your team's down 1 point, but you go to the free throw line and shoot two free throws, right, to win the game. Um, you try to shoot free throws in all kind of situations, whether it's pressure, you're down, or if it's just at the beginning of practice. You gotta shoot them in all situations because you just never know. When in the game you're going to be in those situations, if that makes sense.
yeah, what if somebody like say example Mitchell Robinson? What if somebody struggles from the foul line? Like how do like because I know everybody has their different routines and
Yeah,
shooting
yeah,
stuff. So how do you
yeah.
get from that?
Shoot, John, you just got to find ways to hide those guys. You try to you practice them outside of the games and all that. I mean, and you try to you rep it so much, before practice, after practice, during practice, your off days. You got to continue to allow them to practice those free throws, but you try to hide those kind of guys in the game where like they don't have the ball as much, but it's hard. It's hard to. So you just gotta, you're just hoping that something clicks and they can, get their free throw percentage up.
And then you also talked about rebounding. So
Mhm.
I know that rebounding, I know size is a big thing, but it's not always. Like if you look at players like Russell Westbrook and others, they're not always the biggest on the court, but
Mhm.
he's got like 10 plus rebounds or something.
Yeah, yeah. It's rebounding is a will. Like, do you have the will to go in there and go get a rebound, stick your nose in there and get 4, 5, 6 rebounds? Do you have the toughness to go box somebody out and get one, go over the top? You can practice all these drills and stuff, but sometimes, John, it just comes down to if you got the toughness to go and do it. So but we create, us coaches, we create drills, we do drills, we do things at practice to try to create situations of rebounding. um but then, when game day come, it's like, can you go and stick your nose in there? Can you do it? Can you give us an opportunity to get a rebound so we can go and score? So
Yeah, it's always nice when somebody that has handles can get a rebound because then
oh,
they can just put and break.
oh, man, that's huge. That's why, us as coaches, you love for your guards, you love for you know your point guards, your two guards, even your wings. If they can go in and get the rebound, and that way you can start the break, and you don't have to wait on to a big to get it, then your guard get it and go. So
And then I got one last question about you as a coach. So, are you a very fiery guy, laid back? Like, how do you motivate your players and stuff too?
I'm fiery, John, man. Like I'm competitive. Like I love to win. I want to win, and I'm gonna try to find every way to win, if that makes sense, man.
Mhm.
For me to motivate my guys, it's one of those things where it's like, if you're here, if you're in my program, if you're with me, then I shouldn't have to motivate you,
That's
because
true.
you want to be here, right? So, but you always have to remember these are teenage boys, right? So um, you gotta instill in them that life is competitive, right? Like one day you guys are gonna be trying to get a job, so you know, and you're gonna be trying to fight with 50 other people for this job. What kind of toughness do you have? you know uh, so basketball is the same thing. Like, do you want to win? Why are you here? If winning is not, if it doesn't matter to you, then why are you doing it, right? So
Mhm.
and
Agree.
everybody wants the glory, right? But is
Yes.
everybody putting in the work to get the glory, right? So,
Yeah.
and what I mean by that, are you putting in the work to win? And why are you putting the work in, right? It's to go out there and compete. And us as coaches, we're competitors, and we are pouring into these young guys, and it's like, guys, you are young competitors right now. You're trying to win, and I always tell kids, you should have some kind of goals that you want for yourself. So whatever those goals are, the only way to accomplish them, as if we can accomplish them as a team, and you'll get what you want, right?
Yes.
So, but you're just trying to find all ways, all things, anything to motivate these guys. If it comes to um, listening to other coaches and giving a speech, or things of that nature.
Okay. So you got to coach your son, right?
Yes.
Okay. Tell us what that was like.
Man, it was a blessing. It was a true blessing, for me. I was able to pour into him something that he wanted to do. And honestly, he was a baseball kid, um, his whole life. And when I was at Hillgrove, he actually played for, shout out to Dave Richardson, who runs a great program at Hillgrove. He played for Dave in middle school, and it was like one day he was like, "Dad, I want to really indulge in basketball," and I'm like, "You sure?" And so he was like, "Yeah." And so when I transitioned to becoming a head coach at Hiram, you know, we got into the gym, we worked night and day and night, and he really did a great job in growing as a young man, but also as a basketball athlete. And we had some good times. We won two region titles, three region titles actually, while he was there. Um, and we went to two Elite Eights. And then he had a lot of success. And I thank God, I was able to be a part of that and give him, what he needed to get what he wanted.
How do you find that balance between being his dad and being coach?
uh, you know, you have to check yourself at times, because on the court is like I'm coach, but once we get off the court, I'm dad. Now I can really, really like talk to you and really give you, what you need. But as a coach, though, I coached him just like I coached everybody else. I didn't show any favoritism. He worked just as hard as anybody else as well. Shout out to Chase Tyler, Walter Matthews, Sakai Lockhart, Amir Taylor, um, and the rest of those guys that were on that Elite Eight team in 2023. And they they could tell you that he was treated just like them. So, but you have to separate coach and dad, because you don't want to come home and he's still hearing a rah rah rah. You still have to love on him.
All right, so now we're gonna preview Etowah.
Yes, sir.
All right, so have you got to meet any of the coaches and players yet?
Yes, we actually just finished up our summer kind of season Saturday at Next Play 360. So um, got a Coach Steele, Tim Steele, Coach Peterson. Shout out to them guys on my coaching staff, and then the guys they've been working hard this summer. We've been working, and they've gotten a lot better. They're starting to understand what I expect and what's needed. And like I said earlier, we're playing in one of the hardest regions in the state of Georgia, and we still got a lot of work to do. But those are kids. They listen. They want to be coached. They're sponges, and so for me, that makes the job a lot easier. So I got a great group of guys, and I'm just looking forward to coaching them. This season.
I'm sure the roster's not fully set, but do you have an idea yet of who's going to be on the team?
Well, this for the month of June, I got an idea of, of guys that will be on the team in the winter. And, you know, um, so for me, it's just to make sure I can keep them guys working all the way up until that time in October, So, once we get there, we roll right into the season. We ain't wasting time. They know what we need, and we can go ahead and start winning games.
So what are your expectations for Edwa this year?
My expectations: go out and compete. Go out and compete. Give it your everything every night, night in and night out. Don't leave anything. And let's win some games. Let's win some games. At the end of the day, let's show what we've been doing. All summer, fall, and now winter. So let's go compete, win games. That's the whole thing of it.
All right, now let's talk about what type of team. Are y'all going to be an older team, a younger team, somewhere in between?
We're gonna be in between, John. Honestly, man, which is a good thing. I got some young guys that I can throw in the fire, and I got a good group of juniors who, they got some experience. I got two seniors right now that have played a lot, so I'm relying on my two seniors, uh, Jamar and Rod, to lead the team and guide them and give them what they need to and show them the ropes and stuff. So and then next year my class of juniors, they'll be seniors. So they have really been through the fire, from last year, this year, and then even next year. So it'll be like let's roll. Let's keep this thing rolling.
All right. I don't know if this matters to you much, and I know you're going to have to adjust every year. But are you going to be more guard driven, big driven, what, or
Um,
balance, or what?
It'll be balanced. Got some good guards. Got some kids with some good basketball IQ. And I got a couple bigs. Now are they 6'10", 6'11"? They're not, but they they'll be suitable for high school basketball. So
So when you're not practicing and playing, do you give them like summer drills or anything to work on?
yes. So my biggest thing, John, is I think kids feel like that as a high school coach, we're supposed to get them to like to be like this great player. And I always tell guys we're just a piece of it. So we're gonna, as high school coaches, we're definitely gonna do our job and help you grow. But you also got to go outside of what we do, and you got to do some things on your own. You got to go work on some things on your own. Maybe go, if you got a trainer, go train with your trainer. Go play basketball at the park or LA Fitness. Go and play basketball other than with us. Because you can learn a lot outside of what we do. You know, um, and I think the greats of basketball, that's what they've done. They don't get stagnant by just relying on practice to get them good. So you got to go outside and do some things on your own to get, to even get better.
Well, you were wonderful. That pretty much wraps it up. I just wanted to let you know this may be more for you personally as opposed to my audience, but I don't want to say anything confirmed, but I have a couple people that that
Yeah,
have had interest in coming on.
yeah,
Kyle Castlin and Colin Sexton,
yeah,
those two,
yeah.
and so I'm looking forward to that. Uh, and I told Keith that I interviewed you, and so he wants to see it too.
Gotcha, man. Those were some great kids, man. Shout out to Kyle Castling, man. He was great. Oh man, Colin, he was great as well, man. Demir Black, Keith Ray, uh, gosh, man, BJ Brown, who was it? Cal Sledge, Dominique Early, just some of the guys that I was able to help coach with Ed Morris and stuff. And I came across, some great kids, man. And that's the thing, John, is, those kids, they are productive citizens, young men's fathers, husbands, Brandon Waters, all those guys. Shoot, man, just a lot of great guys that, Hillgrove guys.
Yeah, and what's cool is this doesn't happen for everybody, but a couple of them have been fortunate to go beyond college. Like Kyle's playing overseas, and Colin, of course, is in the NBA.
Mhm.
So that's pretty cool. And I'm sure they've had to put in a lot of hard work because even good players don't. It just come.
No, John, it's man, it's a blessing, man. Those guys can probably tell you. I'm pretty sure. Colin has. He's been to a couple teams, and but he works so hard, though. I don't think nobody can ever match his work ethic. Cal has been playing, for years now, and he was just one of the hardest working kids. You know, not one of your typical athletic kids, but he can play. He'll come and Cal he was great. He was great.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. He was one of my favorites
Yeah.
of all the guy. Of all the guys that actually stayed through and graduated, I think he was one of the best that
Oh
you ever
yeah.
had.
Hands down. Him. Demir Black. Demir Black had a great couple years, man. He was people forgot about him. He was just one of
Oh
those
yeah,
gems that was sitting and he just blossomed and he had a great career at Rowan State and Fort Wayne University.
yeah, and Kyle even got his number retired. Unfortunately, I
Yep.
wasn't there, but yeah, he got his number retired. That's pretty cool.
Yep. That's great, man. So John, I thank you, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I loved having you on, and that pretty much wraps it up for today. Thank you so much.
Gotcha, John. Thank you, man. Have a great rest of your summer. All right.
All right, you too.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.